Hi, this is Lance Yoder, and I am going to be going through a video series here on Google Sheets just to train teachers up on some different tips and tricks that will help them be better at utilizing Google Sheets to organize and sift through data. And so this is a long portion of video that will be actually broken up on a Google Slides presentation, but I'm going to make it available on YouTube so that way anyone can access it. In fact, here is the address for this template if you want to download your own copy so that way you can follow along with me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a lot of different steps of different things that might be helpful when collecting data on students. And so I have some dummy data here to try to work through. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break this up into lots of different chunks. At any time, please feel free to pause and back up as needed. And let's get started. Okay, so here we have a bunch of test data. I didn't say what kind of test it was, but either way, I had a pre-test, a mid, and a final, just to keep track of how students are performing over the course of this study. Obviously not an entire 9 weeks, but maybe just a good chunk of skills that I wanted to track for the time being. And so here we have this test data. I want to see what's going on so that way I can do some follow-up if necessary. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to first start with a set of skills. We're going to talk about freezing rows. We're going to talk about sorting data, creating averages, and also some conditional formatting. Those are the first several tools and tips that I'm going to give you. And so for this first part is freezing rows. And here's why freezing rows is important. And it mostly has to do with the second skill, and that is sorting. What it'll do is it'll allow me to sort through these columns so that way this row right here doesn't move. Watch what happens if I decide to organize by last name. So if I take this column, I click on this little down arrow here, and I hit sort sheet, what it's going to do is it's going to actually take my column headers and shift them down here. So that's a bit of a problem. And just keep in mind, at any time you can undo what you just did on that spreadsheet. So if you start messing with things and things don't look right, you can always undo. All right, so to solve that problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to visit the View tab, go to Freeze, and I can just freeze this first row. So then what happens is when I go to sort the next time, then that row does not move. And anytime I can put it back, and it'll be in the same order. But either way, now I've frozen that. Now, you'll also notice that you have the ability to freeze columns. Now, this is why this is important. If I decide to freeze columns, then you'll see that it freezes the first two columns here, and that makes it so that way as I scroll this direction, it keeps the names there. And so if I have a lot of test data going this way over to the right, that's really nice, so that way I can continue to see student names as I'm looking at scores and other various pieces of data. But I don't need to do that in this case. I'm just going to do no columns here so that way I can switch that. So at any time, feel free to pause, fiddle around with the freezing, try scrolling, see how it affects your results. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I did show you how to sort it. Now that I did filter it, I'm going to go back here and I want you to sort it by last name. And then I'm also going to do a second sort here. And when I do sort from A to Z again, it's going to sort according to group as well. So now I have within the group, because I sorted last name first, and then I did it by group. By doing that, it's going to now be sorted within the group by last name because I did it in that order. Okay, so that's kind of a nifty trick as far as knowing how to sort through data. Then the next thing I'm going to work on is I am going to show you how to do some averaging here. And so over here in this average column, what I will do is add in a function, and you start every function with an exclamation mark, and I could start typing it, but they also have the functions available right here. And I'm going to just use the average. And you'll see that it says equals average, and I'll have parentheses. And so once I have equals average and I have one parenthesis bracket, then what I can do is I can just actually highlight what cells I want to average and close it with another bracket. But if I just hit enter now, since they made it for me, it's going to give me the average. Now, it would take a really, really long time for me to do that for every cell. I could potentially do that. I could put in average, put in a bracket, click on the cells that I want to average, close it with a bracket, hit enter, and that would take a little while. Now, if I want a faster way to do it, this skill right here is called copy down. And what I can do is I can grab a hold of this little dot right here. And when I do that, and I pull it down like so, what it's going to do is it's going to copy down the average to every single cell, and it's going to do it accordingly. So it's going to do row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7 accordingly. So watch. As soon as I let go, I now have the average for all of those. That's a quick way. So again, all you have to do, I'm going to undo that, is grab a hold of this blue bar or blue box like so and drag it down to the cells that I want it done to. So I've done several different skills here. We did freezing rows, we did sorting, we've done averaging. It didn't take much time at all. And once you practice this more and more, you'll get the hang of it and it's not so bad. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into what's called conditional formatting. And I'm going to start actually with just the group, just for fun. And so conditional formatting, what it does is it allows you to color code things based upon an answer. And so here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this column here, click on this little down arrow, and I want to conditionally format this column so that anyone that's put in according to a name, a group name, it's going to conditionally format. So I'm going to go down, I hit conditional formatting. It'll pop over here with a little screen showing different ways that I can conditionally format. And so I'm going to change this format cells if, I'm going to change it to text contains. I'm going to make it Avengers, and I'm going to make the background blue and the text will do white like so. And I'll hit done. And I could add a new rule and start that over again, do the exact same thing. That's actually slower. If I click back on my previous one and I hit add another rule, it's going to actually keep that same rule. But then all I have to do is change it to Justice League. Prevents me from doing as much clicking around. I'm going to choose red for this one. And then I'm going to add another, and I'm going to change this one to X-Men. And I'll change this to yellow and hit done. And so now I have it color coded, and all it's based off of is what word is in that cell in that column. So if I were to type in Avengers here and hit enter, it would automatically color code it for me according to that column. Okay, so that's your first set of skills. We talked about freezing rows, sorting data, averaging across several cells, conditionally formatting. So what I want you to do is take some time fiddling with that. Feel free to use your undo button to practice those skills again, and then we'll jump into the second set of skills. Okay, the next set of skills, we're going to use some different tools. One is find and replace. We're going to continue conditional formatting, and this time not based off of words, but we're going to do it based off of a number range. I'm going to talk about copying and pasting special. And what that means is I'm going to copy and paste just the conditional formatting. There are easier ways to do this, but it is important that you can paste functions and conditional formatting and a lot of different features. And then also we're going to talk about another option for figuring out the net gain or loss. We're going to use the equals minus function, and we'll conditional format that too. Okay, so lots of skills here that we're going to jump into for this second set of skills. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to first jump into conditional formatting based off of score. All right, so I'm going to go right here to my pretest, and I could potentially, actually, it'd be faster if I would do the conditional formatting all the way across like this, but I'm going to start just in this one just to show you that you can make these adjustments here. And then if you wanted to customize specifically across the board, you could. So I'm going to first click on this down arrow. Another way you can do it is to go to Format, Conditional Formatting. It immediately turns green. And this time I'm going to choose a range of numbers here. Let's go with first greater than or equal to, and I'll say an 80 or above. I'm going to keep green. And again, if I close out and I hit add new rule, then I have to start over by clicking this, and that's fine. I can do it either way. Let's do, this time, is between, and we're going to do 79, and we'll do 60. And I'm going to make these yellow. Hit done. And then I'm going to add another rule, and we're going to make this one is less than 60. And so you can see that I used some different combinations here, except I didn't change the color there. Sorry about that. Change the color. There we go. Make those pink. And you'll see that I did some different combinations. I did value is greater than or equal to. I did value is between 79 and 60. And then I did value is less than 60. And so some different combinations there to get some different color coding, and it automatically color scales it for me. So that way I get a better idea of what's going on in the pretest. Okay. Now, if I want that exact same conditional formatting elsewhere, I can actually use all of this without redoing everything. And so what I can do is I can copy. I'm going to click on the letter D up here and I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to go to the next cell and I'm going to paste special. So when I go to paste special, you'll see that you can paste values, format, borders, column widths, format only, data validation only, which I'm not getting into, conditional formatting, or transposed. I'm just going to do conditional formatting here. And when I do that, it instantly will apply the exact same conditional formatting that I had here in this cell to this set of cells. Pretty exciting stuff. But I can change this. So if I go to format and I go to conditional formatting, then all I have to do is make some slight adjustments. So if I'm wanting to increase the value here to, like, let's say 82 or 83, and I want to adjust these values, I could click on them and adjust the values accordingly. And that would save me a little bit of time instead of having to reinvent the wheel there. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the final. I'm going to paste special, conditional formatting, and do the exact same thing, paste special, conditional formatting, right to the average. Okay, so what you end up seeing is you see color coding based off of values. Pretty fun. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can utilize this information to adjust a net gain and a net loss right here. Okay, so I have net gain or loss pre to mid, so from here to here, and then net gain or loss from mid to final, so from here to here, and then from pre to post, so from here to there. And I probably should put final or post, one of the two here. Either way, you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and change that now because that's going to bug me that I'm not consistent across the board. All right, so to do that, all I need to do is subtract. So I'm going to use a simple subtraction function, which is minus, and I'm going to use that to be able to determine what the difference was between the pre and the mid, mid and final, and then pre and final. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to use equals, minus, and I'm going to put in a parentheses here. I'm going to do the mid range here. So it'll be cell E2, which is this cell right here. I could have just actually hit it. And then I'm going to do E2, which I could type it or I can just click on it like that. And it puts it in, and I'll hit close it with brackets and hit enter. And now I see a difference between them. And actually all I have to do is I'm going to do the same thing that I did to average, and I'm going to copy these down by grabbing a hold of this dot and dragging it down. And instantly it's going to give me that net change. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to mid to final. I'll do equals, minus. I'm going to select my final this time, comma, select my mid, close it with a bracket, enter, drag it down, and then I'll do the exact same thing here. Okay, so now I have these ranges here. I'm going to shrink this down so that way I'm not taking up as much space here. All right, so that way I can see the net gain between those. And then what I'm going to do is conditionally format these as well. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up my conditional formatting, except I'm going to do it across the board like so. So what I did was I clicked on H and I held down Shift and I clicked on J. Another way you could do is hold down Control and click on each one you want, the column letters there. And once I have those selected, then I can go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and it's going to allow me to then go from there and conditionally format. So again, I'm going to use, in this case, a greater than or equal to. So we'll say if there's a greater than or equal to in this case, we'll say greater than 2, and we'll make those green. And you can conditionally format these however you want. We'll do, how about is between, and we'll do a -1 and a 1, and we'll make that yellow. And then we'll do another rule, and we'll make this is less than -1. We'll make that red. Maybe a different one, more like pink. Okay, and this allows me to track what's happening between these tests if I have any red flags of some major changes, some net gains or loss. So here I have a major loss, and here I have a major loss. Based off this data, I would say that Mr. Bruce Wayne was cheating on that first test, and he definitely suffered quite a bit across the board. Oh, one major step that I did miss in that, I said I was going to do find and replace. I never did. I just jumped right into conditional formatting and copying and pasting special, net gain and loss, and then conditionally formatting that too. So one major skill that's nice is you'll notice that X-Men really should have a hyphen there. So what I'm going to do is use find and replace to change all of that. In this case, I could just type it correctly and then drag it down, but find and replace is really handy when you have a ton of data. In this case, I don't have a ton, so it's not as applicable, but it's still helpful to know that it's there. So I'm going to click on find and replace. I'm going to find X men like this. I'm going to go down to replace with X hyphen men, and I'll hit replace all and watch what happens to X-Men. Boom, changes them all. But you'll notice that it messed up my conditional formatting. So I got to click back on this, go to my conditional formatting here, and adjust it so that way it has a hyphen between them, and then it will conditional format them correctly. That covers find and replace conditional formatting based off of ranges of scores, copying and pasting special, and also using the minus function in order to determine a net gain or loss. For the third section, we'll talk about calculating the minimum score, the maximum score, and also a class average. We'll talk about setting up filters and how to go about doing so, so that way you can quickly see data. We'll also add additional sheets to this spreadsheet, and we'll also take the data that you want to see and we'll copy and paste it to those sheets. So let's get started. So over here on the right-hand side, I'm going to add some more column headers here. So I'm going to put in minimum, max, and I'm going to do average. And here I'm going to set up another table, and I'm going to say that this is for the, we'll do pre-test, mid, and final. That way I have a nice little table that I can work with to show this information directly on here. So to calculate the minimum, what I need to do is I just need to type in min, which actually it is here in the functions. If you wanted to determine min, you could just click on it and it would show it. So I have min, parentheses. I'm going to choose the pretest like that, close it with a bracket with a parentheses, enter, and I see that the minimum is right there for the pretest. Okay, so I'll do the exact same thing to the max. Type it in like I did with the minimum, but this time I'm going to use the function button. I'll hit max and I will choose the pretest set, hit enter, there we go. For the pretest average, I'm going to go ahead and choose the function button again, average, and we'll choose the pretest and enter, done. Okay, I'll do the exact same to these, except I'm going to be choosing the mid column here instead. Here we go. All right, and so this is really valuable information as far as determining on the pretest what was the minimum score, and on the mid and the final. Not only can I see averages across a student's test, but I can see class averages over here. All right, so this is fun data. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about filters. I love filters because filters allow me to see exactly what I want to see at a specific time. This is great when you are wanting to do any conferencing with parents or other teachers, and they only need to see certain individuals, especially in the special education department, this allows you to share just that information so that way you can pull up just what they need to see. So to turn on a filter, what I need to do is I first need to make sure that I'm not selecting a cell. If I do that, if I select a cell, then what ends up happening is it only searches in that cell. So I need to select the entire table like so. Click on this icon right here. This is a filter. And what you'll see is it instantly comes up with some dashes here showing that I'm ready to insert a filter. So I'm going to do this by group. So that way I can take this data and put it to a separate sheet. I'm going to click on this little cone, and what ends up happening is if I clear these, I can choose which one I want to see. So if I only want to see the Avengers and I hit OK, I can see just the Avengers like so. You'll see that it didn't change the data over here, which is really interesting. I'm going to do the exact same thing, except this time we'll choose Justice League, see what happens. And I don't see any changes there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is choose the X-Men. And that time I have Justice League and X-Men. Okay, so I could do the exact same thing if I only wanted to see a specific student. So if I hit select all, I can bring everyone back, scroll back up. And if I only want to see one student, I'm going to clear all these. And let's say I only want to meet with Peter Parker's parents. And I can show what the results are just for Peter Parker's parents. Pretty powerful information there. Let me click on the filter icon again, select all, so that way all my students are back. Okay, and you can tell when a filter is on because when you turn on a filter of any sort, it symbolizes it right there. It shows a cone showing that I'm filtering that one. You'll know that you aren't filtering any when all of them show dashed lines like that. And anytime I can turn off the filter just by clicking on the filter icon again, and then I'm back to normal. As soon as I click on that, things turn green and I have these options to filter again. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, let's say in this scenario, I just want to have my groups of students in separate spreadsheets. If I have some sort of intervention for a group or a specific teacher working with a group of students, then they're able to see just that test data to give them an idea of where that student stands within this topic. All right, so I'm going to create first a new spreadsheet. I'll hit plus, and down here at the bottom, you'll see that you can switch between these spreadsheets. I'm going to hit the down arrow here. I'm going to rename this one. We're going to call this one Vendors. You also see when I hit that down arrow, you can even color it if you want to. So I'll go ahead and choose a color just for fun. Makes it kind of neat to do that. I'll go back to my test data, and I have my filter on. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the Avengers. So that way I have that data. And I'm going to copy what's there, like so. Go to my Avengers tab, and I will paste everything. And when I do that, what happens is it will actually not only copy and paste the students over, but it's also going to copy and paste over all my functions. And this is kind of cool because what it did there is it actually changed all my minimums and my maximums according to this data set, but it kept all my functions that I had done previously. That's really awesome, isn't it? So when I copy and paste from a filter, it's going to redo all the functions for me automatically. That saves a lot of time and effort. I'll do the exact same thing for the other groups. So I'm going to undo my filter, select all. I'm going to create another page, and I can move these pages like so, just drag and drop them. Rename this, we'll call this Justice League, and I'll make that one red. And I am by no means a comic book kind of guy, so if I am somehow not being accurate with my comic book stuff, I apologize. I just needed some data. There we go. So I have Avengers, Justice League, and X-Men. I'll go ahead and go back to my test data here, switch this to a filter with just Justice League. I'm going to click here on this box right here. It selects everyone, copy it, go to my Justice League page, and paste. It's going to copy everything over and watch it pump out the formulas just like so. Pretty powerful stuff. I do the same thing here. For X-Men, take the sheet, copy it, paste it in. And again, it's going to pull my information over. Now you'll notice in my Avengers, it did the minimum, maximum, and average for the pre, post, and final. It did not do that with Justice League and X-Men. I want you to think for a moment why that might be. So you can go ahead and pause it right now. So here's the deal. The reason it did that is because in the original spreadsheet, let me show everyone, undo all my filters here, turn those off. Like so. If I go up here, you'll see that this set of cells is just here with the Avengers. That's why when I set up the filter, it's only showing Justice League and X-Men. It's not showing these functions. So what I actually need to do is copy this data over like so. I'm going to copy it. So to select that range, what I did was I clicked on the first cell, held down Shift, and now I've selected all that. I'm going to copy it. So I right click, copy. Go to Justice League, and I'm going to go to this first cell because that's going to be my titles, and I'm going to paste, but I'm going to paste special here. In this case, I'm going to paste special the formula only. I don't want the numbers themselves. So I'm going to just do the formulas because then what it'll do is it's automatically going to use this data here. I'll do the exact same thing on this one. Paste special, formula only. What it has done is just taken the functions that I had put in the original, and it's applying to the cells that are existing on this spreadsheet. Okay, so this is an exciting way that you can separate the data, so that way only specific people can see exactly what they need to see. Now that you're all done, you have some exciting information here as far as being able to set up filters, being able to freeze rows, sorting the data so that way it's in a specific order. Learn different functions like average and minus, as well as minimum, and maximum. You'll also learn how to add additional spreadsheets, as well as copy and paste special. Paste special is so important because of the fact that you can paste specially exactly what it is that you're wanting to paste over. So lots of different skills here. I hope that you found this beneficial. So your task now is to look at some of your own student data. I want you to try and create filters. I want you to try and use some conditional formatting and try adding in some functions like average, minimum, or maximum.